Hi everyone, let's talk about Detective. And I'll try and be as spoiler free as possible because I don't want to spoil anything. We've played through all of the main game, the 5 cases that make up the base game, and the sixth pre-order smaller bonus case. And yeah, I like the idea of being a detective anyway, of playing through these deduction games. I realise I haven't really played that many. I've played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but it was the Istari one with mistakes, and we gave up after a couple of cases, and Chronicles of Crime, which I'm really excited about, but I've only played a short prototype of that. I think that's pretty much it for deduction games. I love the idea of them, but haven't really got a chance to really dig deep into them. And we definitely did with this. We played this at the UK Games Expo. We played the first case in a demo with Dave Loser, who's on This Game is Broken, and we got taught it by Ignacy, so I'll stay right away. I can't really speak about the rulebook and things because we were taught the game, so looking back, it's we kind of look through it and try and judge whether it's good or bad, but we already knew how to play. We didn't learn it from the rulebook. There are a couple of things where it could do with reorganizing where some information is, but yeah, overall I can't really comment on it. Anyway, came for the game itself. We played it at the UK Games Expo, and after that I pre-ordered it because yeah, I was really excited. If you saw my kind of report after the expo, it was definitely one of my highlights of the whole event. We played for about two and a half hours doing that case, and it was a fantastic experience. Just being flooded with all of this information and seeing these leads spread out in front of you. And so it really drives cooperation because the game has so much coming at you that you kind of split these responsibilities. Okay, you're going to be the person on the computer doing the Antares stuff, and I will be reading the stuff out, and you can be making the mind map. You can be keeping track of all of the cards and where things are. Obviously, with fewer players, you have to double up on these roles. We played it as 3 in that demo, and then we played the whole thing as 2 players. But yeah, it was definitely manageable. We didn't feel overwhelmed. We had to stop while I caught up with writing down some of the things quite often. But yeah, it didn't feel like there was too much for us to handle at 2. But yeah, it really drives cooperation in that respect because yeah, you are all throwing out these theories. It really feels like you are in that environment. It feels like you're detectives, discussing where you're going to go next and discussing the merits of the various things, whether you think it's a waste of time going to a certain place, and you're really pushing your theory because you've noticed these things, you've been looking through the database, you've been looking at the cards and correlating all of this stuff, and you think you've found something, or you've just got a hunch that we need to go to this place. It really feels like we are all working together and coming up with things separately as well. It gives you room to do that. You can be just tapping away on the database, looking at the evidence that you've gathered, or looking at the profiles of people and trying to match up information. And it's a fantastic moment, whether it's done just from your kind of investigating while everyone else is kind of thinking, or you're all doing it together and all throwing out these theories and yeah, just basically listing your thoughts of what it could possibly be. It really feels satisfying progressing through the case, and it never felt like we were left in a situation where, okay, I completely don't know what to do now. It gives you the starting point with those further leads, and from there a lovely web develops of all of these different ways to go through the case. So we've played case 1 twice because it was about 6 weeks ago that we played that, and the cases in the main game do form a story, so you need to remember things from that first case in order to progress. You need to keep these things kind of fresh in your mind over the course of your playtime. I think Ignacy mentioned that he was expecting people to play it maybe once every couple of weeks because it's a big session, and this may be a downside. It wasn't for us. We binged this like it was some kind of Netflix series over a weekend. It wasn't a huge commitment to do that. It was all we played that weekend, but yeah, some cases go up to about 3 hours. Some cases were quite short. I think at least one of them was about an hour we got through it. So it's not like they're all huge 3-hour things, but it could be a concern if you don't really have that time to get everyone together or just to play games in general. That's something to be aware of, that some of the cases are fairly long and involved, and kind of the cases build on each other and require you remembering information from beforehand. Now that is kind of solved by having good notes, taking good notes over the course of the game. You can always go back and look at the stuff from previous cases in the Antares database, and yeah, you maybe just have a big refresher when you get back to your next session. But if it's going to be longer between your sessions, that could be a bit of an issue for you. We went fully into it, and we got a bulletin board down, and the pre-order bonus of the game was, amongst other things, portraits of all of the characters in the game, the people that you were investigating. And it seemed like just a frivolous extra when it was mentioned at first, but I really hope that these are made available either through the store, Portal Games' store, or if they just release them online for you to print out themselves. It seems like a silly thing that they're just, little portraits, little Polaroids of the characters with space on the back to write information. They added to the game so much, I think, that, yeah, I really hope that they're available to everyone, because they don't make or break it, but I feel like they just added so much flavour to the game to see, obviously you don't need to go crazy like we did and pin them up on a board and stuff, but it not only helped with the atmosphere of what we were doing, having that on and having, Twin Peaks or Deadly Premonition music on to help with the investigation atmosphere, it just looks brilliant for you to have these visual references. The characters' pictures do come up in the booklet, in the story booklet, as you are going through these things, and they will come up when you search for the names in the Antares database. But I really did feel like it was great to keep these identifiers in your mind and keep being reminded of what these people looked like. It really helped, rather than just having lists of names in our mind map. But that's just a little separate thing. But yeah, it's going to be a concern that you need to keep all of this stuff fresh in your mind. So note-taking is so important, not just for solving the case itself, but for remembering what is going on in this campaign. Okay, I cut that bit out because I think I said spoilers. So the main case itself, I don't want to say what it's about even. You can probably find it on the website maybe, but I don't want to risk it. I think that it is telling a different story to what I expected. I expected, just maybe a standard murder or something like that. It's not that. It starts off in a different direction and really does make a quite complex story out of that. A very interesting thing that has a lot of different ways to go down. As I was mentioning, that we played through that first case twice, and it's not a game that is going to be infinitely replayable and everything. And through the 6 weeks, we had forgotten some of the things in the first case, and you will forget more if you leave it longer, obviously. But it was nice going down all of these avenues that we couldn't go down in the first playthrough because you are really constricted by time. And while that can seem maybe frustrating, because in Sherlock Holmes, for example, you can go and do whatever you want. You're just going to get a worse score if you keep going through everything, but you can do that. In this, you are limited by maybe the tokens that you have or the time you have, but I didn't see it as a problem at all. It just felt like sometimes, it felt like you were really short of time, and it could be really frustrating when you went to somewhere and it took 4 hours when you had loads of things you needed to do that day. But it does force you to have those discussions of what are we going to do? We've got 3 hours left and it's the last day. We can't afford to mess around. We need to be sure that this lead is the one, because it could take all of the time of the day. I think that that's a really, really nice part of the game. That it does lend itself towards playing it again as well, to go down directions you didn't go down. Like I said, we've got these portraits of all the characters in the game. We've got quite a few of these portraits, not a huge amount, but a few portraits. We don't know who they are. And we still solved the case in the end and solved the individual parts of it. But there were these different ways we could go down. There's definitely there are quite a few cards that we didn't use, that places we couldn't have gone. You can't do everything in one playthrough. You either don't have enough time, or you don't have the tokens to be able to investigate further, or maybe you just didn't want to waste them at that time. I really liked that part of it as well. The cases also, I think, change things up a bit. Not every single case, but there are a few cases that do definitely change the formula of just, here's your story, here are your leads, now go. There are definitely some surprises in there that were really good, and while I would be completely fine with just everything being a 3-hour investigation where we are finding out more and more and more information, it probably does help to keep it fresh as well, that it changes itself over the course of the story. There can be some nice surprises along the way as well, while still, yeah, I say it's changing up, but you are still at the core doing this investigation and deduction between you. That is the core of it. I do think that a weak part for me was the actual characters that you play and the consultants. It's nice being limited in these tokens because, again, you have to decide about what you're really using. But yeah, we didn't really care who we were. We didn't use our abilities that much. Maybe that's down to a two-player game that we have a lot of these consultants and a lot of tokens. We definitely ran out sometimes, but yeah, we never felt like it was vital to be a particular person or that it mattered who we were, because yeah, obviously the game doesn't know who you're going to be, so it can't really talk about you as a character, and it's just someone to put you on, really. But yeah, it didn't really strike me as a particularly strong part of the game. The main deduction and the story and everything is really where it's at. And so the story itself, I said that it's definitely going in a bit of a different direction, and it has so many different avenues to go down that you can't possibly see them all. That's a really nice thing, and that it's not vital for you to see everything. It's not vital for you to see the back of every card or to go down every lead, because yeah, it's relying on you doing some deduction for yourself. You're not going to have things spelled out for you by going to that one perfect place. You're going to have to, between you, work things out and have to give up on certain things to go to other places that you feel are more important at the time. The story itself, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was something quite different and something very interesting all the way through. I will say that, I don't know if you got an impression if you saw the playthrough, there is a lot of, maybe it's trying to justify how long some of the cards take, because it kind of tells you in the rulebook that, if it's in the headquarters, you're in the headquarters, it's probably only going to take an hour or two. If it's field work, you need to go longer, it might be 3 hours or more. If you go to the lab, usually the results take ages, so it takes 3 to 4 hours. But we found that often, a large chunk of the card, or maybe even the first side of the card that you're reading, is detailing your journey there and the coffee you had while you were waiting for all of these things. At the beginning, it was nice and it was a funny little bit of fluff on top of the story itself, but as it just kept happening throughout, every time we did something, we kind of read a few paragraphs or maybe a whole card itself just dedicated to this minutiae of, that's not how you pronounce that, is it? the very, very inconsequential details of what we were drinking at the time. Yeah, it went from being a funny little thing to chuckle about to just, yeah, we'll just skip this. Yeah, there are parts of it that are kind of dry and clunky, but yeah, when it's nice to have a little bit extra on top of just the cold hard facts. But yeah, I think it went a little bit much in the flavor text area, and yeah, it can't really talk about us as characters, I suppose, and maybe that's a bit of a downside. But yeah, we were happy just kind of fast forwarding through those parts, especially not because we were desperate to get to the end of it, just because we weren't that interested in what those parts had to say. They were often quite irrelevant to the larger thing that we were thinking about. And yeah, I want to emphasize that we weren't trying to fast forward through this. I wasn't trying to get to the end of it to make this video or anything. I've finished it for more than a week by now. We were really, really into it. We knew after that first game at the expo that we would definitely, I was interested anyway, but we were totally on board after that first game. And yeah, we were really keen to, first thing on the Sunday, we played the first case on the Saturday, and really keen to just, first thing, we'll just start detective. We won't watch TV or anything before we start playing games. We're just going to go straight into this. And yeah, it just happened that we were so engrossed in it, we played through the whole thing. Mistakes, as I mentioned, we gave up on Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective because the old version had so many annoying things in it that are more pronounced. If games have errors in them that need FAQs, that's fine and understandable, but in games like this, it's vital that people's names don't change halfway through, for example, Sherlock Holmes Istari version. But in this, I would say that there are minor things. There was one case when we played it, obviously, very early. We got a pre-order copy, and I assume, based on our experience, we might have been one of the first people to get to the end with an actual retail copy that didn't work for Portal, I imagine, because yeah, there was one errata that came up in one of the cases. The card will say this, actually it means this, It's obviously a bit of a problem because we did forget that and it caused a bit of an issue. But yeah, it's nice that they have the website because they can signpost these little mistakes. Like we found a couple just through our play that, oh, it says go to this card, go to the back of this card. There's nothing on the back of this card. We think you meant this one, did you? And yeah, there were a couple of things like that. As I said, very minor and didn't derail the investigation at all. We kind of figured out what it meant. Obviously, it would be nice to be perfect, wouldn't it? But yeah, those issues are quite minor, and yeah, the one kind of there was a bit of a weird thing in that when we got to the end of the game wasn't there on the website. There was a thing that we needed to type into the website, and when we did, it was just like, this isn't ready yet. It was most likely some kind of error on the code because everything had been written, it just wasn't present on the website. And yeah, after a couple of days, it was all fixed, and we went in and did our final bit. So we had a bit of a it killed the momentum a little bit. And when we did get to the ending, we were like, okay, we need to go back and kind of remember this thing that we were in the swing of a couple of days ago. Yeah, that's only going to matter for us because it's fixed for you now, isn't it? But yeah, it's a little point that with a bit more checking, I think some of these, we weren't going through it with a fine-tooth comb and found a couple of things. As I said, they're very, very minor, but those and the website not working, I feel like those should probably have been found because, I don't know, maybe it was tested on an internal computer where it would have been there and it's the external one that didn't have it. Yeah, just a minor thing, as I said, but yeah, I feel like that shouldn't have happened. Obviously, it shouldn't have happened. Yeah, I'm being obvious there. But overall, I really, really loved this game. It's not perfect at all. I'd never say that about any game, would I? I might say it about Gloomhaven. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. It's a really, really enjoyable game. It's definitely got a bit of clunky text, a bit too much flavor text. It might be an issue for you if you don't have the time to do these big play sessions or have to space them out over too long a time. It might be hard to keep going back into the swing of things and keep remembering all these details because, yeah, cases that are telling this big story sometimes might need you to call right back. And if you haven't made that note, it's going to be, it's going to be harder for you, or you're going to have to keep digging back through all these things. You can go back through the cards that you're looking at, but yeah, it's not ideal. That's a little thing as well, that when you finish the case, you need to make a note of which cards you've seen either side of. And yeah, that's a bit of a pain to do because yeah, there's a lot of writing of numbers and kind of remembering what we did, even though there are places to put them. It's not a huge deal, but it would be nice if there was an app where you can read through the cards. Not saying that the game shouldn't come with them, but for the cases like case 6 where it's all downloadable, you can print the cards off if you want, or you can open the PDF up on your phone and have the cards that way. It would be nice if an app was handling that, if they were just the exact cards as you see in the game, but the app knew which ones you had access to, knew which ones you'd paid for, knew which ones you were allowed to see, because yeah, the PDF on your phone, you do have to keep going back to the index and you might accidentally tap it and see a card you shouldn't have. But yeah, even more so in the case 6 that's all downloadable, it would have been even nicer to have an app that would just handle that all for us, because yeah, it was a bit of a pain having to, every time we saw a card in case 6, like, okay, then I'm going to make a note of this number and if I've seen the back of it, just because we need to know what we're allowed to go back and see, whereas with an actual deck of cards you can go through it. That would be nice in an ideal world. It definitely doesn't hamper the game not having that. It would be nice if it had that though. I really, really enjoyed this overall, though we both did. It should be apparent in that we were desperate to keep playing it right to the end, just binge it until there was nothing left. But yeah, I hope that there is more in store for this, because I know that this took, was it 2 years to develop and make and finesse the story and all of that kind of stuff. I really hope more keeps coming out though. The small case, it was nice to have a little extra. It's maybe a good introduction because it's just a smaller standalone thing, but I would have liked that to have been, a full case, not necessarily have some big branching story, but it would have been nice to add some more leads, some more twists and turns, and make it a proper 3-hour thing where it's only an hour and a quarter, hour and a half, something like that. It was a much shorter thing and much easier to solve in our little experience. I would like more of those downloadable things to keep coming through though, assuming that, I have no information about this of course, but I'm assuming more is coming. I'm assuming that, that there are things in the works with more big overarching stories going on. But I would like to see these little things just keep coming out. These little downloadable things. Yeah, ideally get an app Portal Games for the card things. I have no idea how much it costs or how hard it would be to develop something like that for the cards. It doesn't have to do wonders, but it would be nice to have. I want to see more things keep coming out for this. Obviously, it depends on the success. It depends on if people buy it and enjoy it and all that stuff. But we really, really did. And yeah, it's gonna... We might go back to... I'm interested in seeing the different ways we could have gone, the different ways we could have solved it, these people that we never got contact with. But yeah, it's not like I feel a burning desire to go back right now and do it. But at the same time, I'm not saying, okay, well, that's done. Completely get rid of that now because I'm never thinking about it again. There's definitely an itch to find out more about it, and hopefully that will be compounded and added to by more stuff coming out for the game. Because yeah, most people won't have completed it as quickly as we did, will we? We're not expecting something to come out tomorrow, but yeah, get on it because we really, really, really enjoyed it. There's definitely, I think I've gone on enough, haven't I, really? I'm just going to repeat myself over and over again. I think if you've watched it through, then you'll know the things that I criticised about it, but overall, I really, really loved it. If you just skip to the end to see some kind of conclusion, tough luck. That's Detective, everyone. Bye, see you for the next game.